Oops, pushed the wrong button. Hey, it's No Driving Gloves again. It's Thursday night, but we're an hour earlier than we normally are. And am I making sure my mic works? Yep. Last night we had Will, caught up with Will and SEMA and all of his things. And I had invited Will on the show, but Will's so busy, he took a little bit to get a hold of me. And I had already invited Mitch to step in this week and talk. Known Mitch for 12 years, 13 years. Yeah. Mitch and I worked together at Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum for 10. Well, I've been gone for 4 years, so 8 years, 9 years.
There at the same time for probably
about
8 years.
Yeah, so we worked together for a while. So Mitch and I know the goods and the bads and the fun things. But Mitch, like me, everybody comes in and tells you it's the greatest job in the world. It's about all we're going to cover on barbers. Yep. It is. He stepped away and he's doing a couple kind of cool things, I guess. And we're going to give a quick synopsis of what you're doing, and then maybe we'll get into a little depth about that. You got to lean closer to the mic.
Oops. So about coming up on about a year ago, almost a year ago now, left the museum, and myself and two other guys, Andrew Rains and John Whitson, started our own shop called Birmingham Road and Race, where we kind of do anything and everything to help your car go faster, I guess.
But you don't do it for street legal cars. You're doing it.
No, I mean, our kind of focus is I shouldn't say our focus. The vast majority of our business is like the HPDE crowd, guys that have their street cars that they take to the track, or, usually they're not their daily driver or whatever, but just track car stuff. We have a handful of true race car customers that it is only, race car. But then most of it's just high performance driving stuff, suspension upgrades, more power, brakes, safety stuff. We do a lot of safety stuff. Just kind of keeping people on track.
We're going to quickly go back. HPDE, high performance driving experience.
Yep. So if you, at Barber, for example, since we're in Birmingham, different organizations, there's probably 6 or 8 that host events at Barber where you can pay your couple $100, whatever it is. They all vary, and show up in your car and drive around the track.
Yeah, it's something I wasn't familiar with until I was at Barber's, and then the number of people that come out and Porsche driving experience type stuff, or I guess the Porsche Club has their track days, and there's other groups that do it. And I mean, it happens at every track across the country. And you found a void though here, because if you're, say, even over in Atlanta at Road Atlanta, there's a garage right there or a shop right on the track where there's nothing in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got started. Myself and Andrew Rains got to be friends, got to know each other, started doing some racing together. And then just through our conversations, we're like, how come we have one of the best racetracks in the country here in Birmingham, but there's not really any shops that focus on servicing and prepping and building cars for the track? There's plenty of shops around that do great work, that are great shops that, sure, they'll, do a track setup for you. Yeah, sure, they'll install these coilovers or this big brake kit, but that's not really what they do. And so we're like, well, shoot, why don't we be the guys that do that? And it's been pretty well received. Like I said, we've only been around for less than a year. Haven't even been able to do tons of advertising or marketing or whatever.
You're finding you're really not needing the advertising.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're recently, as of about, what are we, the second week of?
Yeah, we're second week of November.
So yeah, for about 6 weeks now, we've been a 2-man show. Until then, it was just me doing everything, and I couldn't keep up myself. So that's when we brought in a really good friend of mine, Michael Morgan, that he's been helping with all the admin stuff, kind of the back end stuff. So instead of me sitting at a computer all day on the phone with customers, he can handle most of that, so I can actually be getting some work done.
Yeah, I saw that job when I was looking, and I go, dang, that was 2 months ago. Not that Mitch would hire me. He knows how I am a little narcissistic, and I get my way at.
You can still come help out.
Yeah. Free labor is always appreciated.
Sometimes.
So, what was I going for that? And give us a little bit of your racing background. I mean, you as long as I've known you've always been into tinkering with your own cars and stuff. And
yeah, so like we said, I was at the museum I was there for 12 years, about 9 years with John. Before that, I raced, started in go-karts, did some sports car stuff, did open wheel stuff like Formula cars, and then mostly ended with a lot of short track, like circle track stuff, late models. And then that's kind of what I guess led me to working in the museum for a while. But then I did a lot of drag racing for a while. Through the museum, we did some lemon stuff. And then I met John Whitson, who I'm now partners in Birmingham Road and Race with, that he has a E46 M3, so like a 2004 BMW M3 that we endurance race, and it's called the World Racing League, WRL. And perfect example. He had this car. He lives here in Birmingham, and there were shops that would help him, but no one that could really truly develop and build this car and help him get to the racetrack and go to the track with them, and all the things that racers need. And that's really was kind of the genesis, I guess, for us starting this business. Is we realized that I could kind of be of assistance to him, and then as I started doing more of that, we'd be at the track testing or practicing or whatever, and meet people, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, can you help me do this?" And one thing led to another, and here we are. So I mean, for 20 some odd years now, I've been racing, and whether I'm driving or working on cars or building the cars or in the shop or at the track or whatever. And so I guess it was finally time I kind of turned it into a real business.
Oh, I mean, you are multi-talented as a race car driver. You do roundy round, you do right and left stuff, and you do straight line stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so I started, so how it really got started is, so I used to live in Colorado, a couple hours outside of Denver, and me and my dad went to Vandermeer Drag Strip right outside of Denver. It was like a test and tune day or something. I don't know. I was 10 years old, I guess. And at Vandermeer Drag Strip, they have a go-kart track in the parking lot, but it's not like, the amusement park go-karts. It was shifter karts and, true race karts. And so after the drag race stuff was over, we went down there and started checking it out. And that's really kind of how I got started with my racing stuff. Is we ended up with a go-kart, and we'd go down there every couple weekends, and we'd have to figure out how to work on it, how to maintain it, how to make it go faster. And that progressed for a couple of years. And then through, really just kind of a chance just pure luck thing, we ended up becoming pretty good friends with Bill Elliot, NASCAR driver. And as I was doing the go-karts and then started doing a little bit of sports car stuff, of course, Bill was like, you don't want to mess with that stuff. Here's what you want to do. And he really helped me get involved in more of the oval track stuff. So I was probably 16 or 17 at the time, and still living in Colorado, and would come to, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama every couple of weeks to race the late model cars, the circle track stuff, sometimes on dirt, sometimes on asphalt. And that's really what I did the most of. And then when that kind of came to an end, that's when I started playing with drag racing stuff. It was here. I was living back in Birmingham at the time, and there's 1, 2, 3, probably 5 or 6 drag strips within an hour or two of Birmingham. So it was just kind of a more convenient, I guess, way for me to still play with race cars.
Yeah, when I met Mitch, he had this. Well, he still has the truck, I believe.
Yep. It is.
I think I've seen it run once or twice. I think he used to drive it to work.
I used to drive it.
And then
So since I've known my wife, we have lived in 3 separate houses. She has helped me push it into trailers twice to get it from the first house to the second house, and then push in the trailer again the second time to get it from the second house to the third house. So it's a what year is it? 2001 Chevy Silverado that was just my truck for a while, and then one thing led to another. And, as things do, my daily driver truck turned into a back half tube chassis, twin turbo pickup truck, just
ordinary farm truck.
Yeah. Normal, 1400 horsepower Chevy pickup truck.
So that's with electric motors, right? Because everything 1,000 horsepower is electric today.
It has to be. No. Just 2 big turbos. And it's with all the other racing stuff I'm doing, and as busy as we are in the shop now, maybe a couple days worth of work to get it. It runs, it drives. Every couple months I take it around the block and, upset all my neighbors and then pull it back in the garage just so it doesn't completely sit. But it's a couple days work away from being 100%. But it just, the whole having the time, the energy, the motivation, the money to finish your own personal projects when you have countless customer projects that need to be done. It has been on the back burner for years and years.
It's the pain of being self-employed. I have it where if I'm not doing something for myself, I should be doing something for the business where I'm making money. If I'm not doing it, and now you would be doing the exact same work that you could be making money. And it's one of these things I'm working on dealing with a little bit, is how to be able to run the business and still have a personal life. And you're in that first year and totally jumped in both feet. So it was me and Izzy's anniversary, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So stayed home for that weekend. We had a bunch of time together. It was good. Other than those 2 days, I don't know the last day that I wasn't at the shop. Even if it's just, I just need to run down there. If on the weekends when traffic isn't bad, it's 15 minutes for me. So it's easy for me just to run down and I just, need to get this done or need to get that done. It'll be an hour. And then of course I'm there for 4 hours and the wife's calling me going, "Hey, you said you were going to be home." But it's not to when I first started doing it, I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, going in on Sunday for 4 hours. And I very quickly realized this isn't sustainable. But anymore, I've found a good balance, I think, of not working all the time, but we're kind of at the point of building this new business where it's kind of not do or die, but I can't just sit at home with my feet propped up, knowing that I have all these projects stacking up that if I don't get them done, then they don't get done. So do you get into where Mitch lives to where the shop is? Traffic's pretty miserable.
Yes.
It's awful. At typical 7:30 to 9 times and around that 5 o'clock hour.
Yep.
So do you find yourself going, well, I could leave a little bit early and use that sitting in traffic time at the shop, and then I could stay a little bit later and I'm using that traffic time at the shop, and you leave at 6:15, you're going to get home about the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I either have to leave my house by 7 a.m. or it takes me 45 minutes to get to work. If I leave at 6:45, I can be there, call it 7 o'clock. If I leave at 7 o'clock, I'm there at 7:30. If I leave at 7:30, I'm there at 8:30. So I either leave before 7, or if I don't make it out the door in time, I have my laptop at home and I can get some, whether it's research, whether it's looking into this stuff, whether it's, trying to help a customer with a build or do invoicing, there's 10,000 things that can be done. So it's either leave by 7 or leave after 9. And then same thing coming home. It's I either have to leave by 4:30 or after 6:30. And, the days of me feeling like I've gotten enough done for the day at 4:30 are long gone. So realistically, my hours are generally about 7 to 6:30.
It's just still pretty good for a self-employed guy.
It could be worse. It could be 7 to 7:30 or 8:30. Or we do have a new car that we're building for the 2023 season that actually roll cage just got done and it finished today. So we're hopefully going to pick that up tomorrow if it's not raining too bad. And me and Michael, who I just mentioned, started about 6 weeks ago. We've already been talking. There's probably going to be a handful of all-nighters coming up. The series that we run just released their calendar a couple weeks ago. And last year, their first race was like mid-late February. And this year, it's third week of January. So we were anticipating having almost another full month to get this car done. And so now it's kind of, a little bit of a time crunch, but part of it.
Uh-huh. Deadlines are good, though.
Yeah. If we had been talking about this build for months, we bought the chassis. It's another E46 3 Series. This isn't an M3. It's just a 330 chassis. But by the time we do everything that we do, they're one and the same. And we've had the chassis for 6 months, and it was constantly, well, this week I'll get started. Well, no, this customer came in, so next week I'll get started. And finally we said, if we're going to do this, it's time to go. And so we'd actually already started pulling the car apart when the schedule got released, and we kind of went, oh, we should have gotten started on this sooner. It's with, like you're saying, without the deadlines, without the pressure, it's, even though this is a business project, we're using it we're basically trying to use this car as more or less a marketing tool for us to be able to show what we're capable of. And we've one of the partners in the shop, Andrew Rains, he has a company called Apex Pro that is they call it a digital driving coach. So he does a lot of driver coaching. So he has a bunch of clients that are really great drivers that are always looking to improve, that are interested in venturing out a little bit other than just driving their car at their home track. So we're able to use those contacts to get people that are willing to give us a little bit of money, a lot of money, to drive our car, that makes it worthwhile for us to build this car and go to the track and it not be a huge expense to the business. And so that's kind of the motivation for us to get this done, because it was forever. It was not a whole lot different than the personal projects like my truck. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, we want this. Yeah, it would be fun. It'd be nice, but we have other stuff to do. Well, now it's kind of become a priority, and pressure's on, but that's a good thing.
I sit there. It's different, but it's the same. I've always said I missed working in restaurants because nothing was more fun than that dinner rush or that lunch rush where things had to get done. You had to move. Time flew. Now, granted, that's only for 2 hours, and then it goes off till the next day, where you're constant pressure. Because once I left the restaurant business and I got into the restoration business, and really, unfortunately, since then, I've never had solid, hard deadlines. Everything's kind of progresses as it needed, because the restorations were parts availability, scheduling, things like that. When I was doing it for the public, rather than in a museum setting, it was when the customer paying and things like that. So there was never quite any pressure. I mean, I've had a couple of concours that you had to hit, or a couple of shows that we really needed to have the car the majority of the way done. But you find when you get into this business, when you have, unless you're building a race car, you find when the first time that car shows up at its, SEMA or the roadster show or something like that, it's maybe not quite 100%. There might be a couple of things that need to be done.
All the Bluetooth drive shafts.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess when you're building a race car, you don't. It's got to work, or it doesn't work.
We have to have a drive shaft. Yeah, we can't push it around the track for 16 hours a weekend.
And at least you don't finish well doing that.
No, I'm not in good enough shape to do that either. No,
we'll throw that out there because everybody's talking about it. And we both know Sean Yoder, right? And he gets into racing simulators and how it can teach you to drive, and it's very realistic.
Yeah.
And now it's also come out that that's the way this dude in NASCAR learned to drive. He said, I used to do this. And what did you think of that move? Is that even a conceivable move in somebody's head?
That was, to me, the epitome of he wanted it more than the other guys. He was, I don't know the full story. I'm not as ingrained in NASCAR as I used to be by any stretch. But best I can tell, to the best of my knowledge, he's with kind of an underdog team. They had been overperforming for the majority of the year, and he had a chance to keep his chances of winning the Cup going. And coming into that last corner of that last lap, he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah,
so what was his option? Give up or try something that no one's ever seen before?
It literally is, if I don't do it, I'm going to lose. If I do it and it screws up, I'm going to lose.
If
I
do it and it works,
I make NASCAR popular again for a week.
Yeah. And if you guys that are listening or watching or whatever, if you haven't seen the in-car video of what we're talking about at Martinsville, so NASCAR now has sequential gearboxes, and at Martinsville they're using third and fourth gear, third in the corners, fourth on the straightaways. He gets to about the point of the track where everyone else is on the brakes and downshifting from fourth into third. And he yanks it into fifth and keeps it matted. And just, it was one of the cooler things that I've seen. I liked it.
I would say the fastest laps of everybody else on the field was like in the mid 90s. And he did that lap at like 106 or 103
that
or
lap
something.
Was almost 2 seconds a lap faster than the next fastest lap of the race. Yeah. And obviously he couldn't have done another one, but hey, that's all he had to do. And he did it, and it worked.
Got a lot of, and when it comes to racing, it's camera time. And so I've always said when it comes to NASCAR, you either win or you crash.
Yeah.
That's how you get on camera. Yeah. Now with this new multi-18 screen stuff, I guess you can actually be in 12th and get some TV time. But he got TV time. He's talked about. He's known. He might change the rule book a little bit.
I hope not. I mean, one of my favorite things about the WRL series that we're building this car for to race next year, and we raced all this past year, is their rule book is including safety rules, including roll cage rules, including like their race procedures, and even how they want you to load into the paddock, before the weekend starts. I think it's 16 or 18 pages. Like it's simple. Like all these, there's plenty of series that, they see something like that. So they enact 3 more pages of rules to prevent something like that from happening in the future. Like, what a race. let them have some fun. Let them use the ingenuity.
What's the odds of somebody else doing that?
Me and my dad were talking about it the other day, and he was saying the same thing you just said. He goes, there's going to be a bunch of rules now. And I'm like, well, let's think about it. The likelihood of that being as beneficial, 2 seconds a lap, at many other tracks in Nashville is very marginal. The differential in speed at Martinsville from end of the straightaway to minimum speed in the corner, mile an hour wise, it's probably not crazy, but like percentage wise on the straightaways, they're probably only doing 105, 110 miles an hour maybe. And in the corners, they're pretty slow, but it's not a huge gap. But at any other track, the percentage differential isn't that great. So gaining that advantage of riding the wall around isn't going to gain you that much. And at the bigger tracks, the extra distance from being all the way on the outside is going to be that much more of a downside. So there's probably not many tracks where it would really be an advantage. And how often is someone going to be in a position where it's worth risking everything for those couple positions? Only at the very end of the year with their playoff system will it really be an advantage.
So, yeah, I think the best thing I've saw about it is how it was foreshadowed 35 years ago. I don't know if you've seen the meme where they take the Tom Cruise and, ride the outside. Don't
Pass
worry.
On the outside, it will hold. Oh, trust me, I've seen Days of Thunder plenty of times.
And the narration almost works perfectly for the.
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
All the videos they dubbed over the Days of Thunder. Yeah.
No, I just found that a good move. I haven't watched a full race car or a NASCAR race since February of 01. So, and I had hopes for some drivers to maybe continue that Dale Earnhardt attitude, and it just all became so cookie cutter and safe, and that was a nice breakaway from I think that conservative, throw it all out the window and see what happens.
See what happens. Go for it. Why not?
And it's kind of what you're doing with your business is we'll see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. After years of very, comfortable work, it was time to throw it out there and see what happens.
It's it's kind of like if you do fail, which I don't think you will, you've been a very motivated, and I'll be a lot better person than I was led to believe when you first walked in the doors through people I knew. You just got to go back to do what you were doing. Well, may not be for the same business and that, but you've always had a very successful career in the automotive world, and this just, potentially puts more doors in front of you if don't make it. But I mean, it seems like a solid business plan. It is definitely a need for the area. And I'll jump back real quick. You have driven Martinsville, haven't you?
Never been to Martinsville. Oh. Most of the big name NASCAR tracks pretty much only run, not pretty much only, but mostly run big time NASCAR races. And the stuff I was doing was more of the, local Saturday night short track kind of stuff, which, tracks very similar to Martinsville. Martinsville is a half mile. Most of the tracks I ran were half mile, but never actually on Martinsville. No.
So over your career, you've had the opportunity to drive a multitude of things, been exposed to a multitude of automobiles. What are some of your best drives, do you think, or,
that's always such a
I had a question posed to me like that a couple of years ago, and I answered it in the following week. I said, wait, this is the thing, and it's where I was in a Lotus with Mario Andretti on Barbers, and he had never been on the track. And I had to kind of tell him where the corners were after we almost spun.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like a very arrogant thing, but it's actually a kind of a cool thing I found. So
one of the, I've been lucky enough, I guess you could say. There's plenty of words to describe it, but lucky enough to drive a bunch of super, super special cars and super special environments. But speaking of Mario, at the Birmingham Museum, they have a Mario Andretti Lotus 64, right?
yes.
IndyCar? Yeah. That a couple of years ago, whenever it was, we got to take that car up to Indianapolis, and I got to drive a Mario Andretti IndyCar around Indianapolis. And it was just for, a short little TV promo thing I was doing, 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. But that's pretty cool. There is two people that have driven a Lotus 64 around Indianapolis, me and Mario Andretti.
That particular 64.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. But it's always so interesting to me. I always kind of think when people ask questions like that, I think back to, the Birmingham Museum is mostly motorcycles. And so some of the bikes I've gotten to ride, there was once we were doing one of the big events at the museum, and we had a MV Agusta 250cc GP bike that I don't remember the details, but I got to ride it around and just make sure everything was good before the actual demo. And someone, one of the guests in the museum was going, "Man, how was it?" It was terrible. It was awful. Like this bike is meant to ride at 110% on the edge and win races. With what I'm doing with it, it's beautiful bike, wonderful piece of engineering, incredible machinery, but it was terrible. It was awful to ride. And so it's always just so interesting to me, the driving the Lotus 64 on Indy, great experience. Do I have more fun? Is it more enjoyable to drive a Lemons car? Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's kind of perspective and what each person really enjoys doing. But, there's of all the special thing, the Andretti car, the Lotus, the Ferrari at Goodwood, incredible stories, incredible experiences. But it's almost as nerve-wracking as it is, as, much pressure as there is to not do something wrong.
Oh,
it's just interesting. It's kind of a weird paradox, I guess, where
I had that come up a couple of times. Normally, when we would do exhibition runs at events, I would drive a Lotus 11, and then I would drive a Lotus 23. And for some reason, at one event, I did the 23 first. Big mistake. The 23, even though it was, 8 years newer, 7 years newer, it goes a lot faster, and you can go into the corners a lot faster. And when I got into the 11, you pull in on the 23, you hop out, you get in the 11, you go back out. And it's a polished aluminum 11. Barbers has, I don't know, half a dozen Lotus 11s now or something.
5 or 6 of them.
And this one was great. I loved it. I always loved the Lotus 11. First of all, a miserable car to drive.
Yes.
It's just like being a Budweiser. You're in a Budweiser can driving around, rattles and clunks, and
the best of the best in in the 50s.
Yeah. And then I went out and damn near spun the thing, and boy, that's not something you really want to do.
Nope.
Only once or twice have I known of a car to be spun on the track, and I'm sure glad it wasn't me driving. People that had been there 20 years had both had done it. So, but it's a fun thing to do, but there is a lot of pressure, and But I also do like the way, did you have Mario's car at Indy? And then, you're 15 years younger than me or something like that. But nonchalantly, we drove Goodwood Hill.
it was only a John Surtees Formula One championship winning Ferrari, but no, but like, I don't want to, we could, both of us could go down a list of incredible cars we've driven in incredible circumstances. Right now in our shop, we had a customer get in touch with us and said, "Hey, me and my buddies want to go women's racing. Can you help?" I'm like, heck yeah. That's a blast. Yeah. They just bought a 1989 Honda Civic hatch. It is, talking about a beer can on wheels. Like this is, instead of a 50s version, this is a late 80s, early 90s version of a beer can on wheels. And, we've done this and that to it, kind of trying to just make it so they can at least all get to drive during the weekend. Maybe they don't finish the day, maybe they don't win the race, but they can all drive, get it that reliable. And that it's a blast. It's an absolute piece of garbage, but it's fun.
It's that analogy. It's always more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Yep.
And in this situation, it's more fun to drive something that you can take a risk with, that you can run into the wall. And
we have, and through the shop, we have a 99 Mazda Miata that is absolutely 100% bone stock. We ripped out all the interior just to save weight, put in, racing seats, harnesses, and welded the differential in it. And we take it out to, there's a local track called Mid Pond that used to be a go-kart track, now mostly used for drifting and like motorcycle stuff. And we'll take customers out there to do like car control type clinics, where with the welded differential, it's just super, super tail happy, super, always wants to oversteer. And so people that we have that just aren't as comfortable, like the kind of the perfect, I guess, person for this car, someone like that's fast, but isn't real comfortable when the car gets out of shape. So we just say, go wail on it. Do clutch kicks, lock up the brakes, throw it sideways, go off track, spin out. We don't care. And it is so much fun just to thrash on it. And if something breaks, we were just looking at we started a new dealer account with a website online vendor, and we could get a complete new rear shocks for this car for I think like $75. So it's like if you go off track and destroy one of the corners, it's like $100 and you fix it. You're good to go. It's very enjoyable.
I'm gonna say we might go ahead and wrap down to the conclusion, and you talk about having fun. Mitch is crazy when it comes down to it. He's had a couple of cool motorcycles and stuff, and he's but one of the best stories I know about you, or one of the best, I guess it wasn't a story, it was weeks of stories.
Where is this going?
Your Volvo wagon.
Yes. the best $400 ever spent, ever, by anyone.
Oh no, I never participated, but I heard the stories, and I don't. You could be in Vegas, spend $400 on women in blow, and
as much fun.
Yeah,
not even close. Me and my friend, long story short, because it could be quite a long story, we bought a 1990 Volvo 740 station wagon for $400, and it was my daily driver for a while. We put a nitrous kit on it and drag raced it, and kept increasing the nitrous shot to the point where the engine just couldn't ingest that much nitrous, and it was constant nitrous backfires. One of the backfires, somehow the main harmonic balancer crank pulley, the bolt backed out and shot the crank pulley off, and we're like an hour and a half from home. So we had to walk down the drag strip to find the main crank pulley so we could hammer it back on and put the bolt back in and get the pulleys back on, so we'd have a water pump and stuff. we lifted it and would take it off road, and the like trail that we would run every time we got back to the shop after running this like 15-20 mile loop, the bottom of the radiator was ripped off. And we could never really figure out what was going on. We figured we just, at some point we bottomed out and it ripped the radiator off. And we'll come to find out that, 30 seconds into this 20-minute loop that we would do, there was a real steep downhill followed by a real steep uphill that there was, just a lot of gravel and dirt and mud at the bottom. Well, every time we hit that, the car would bottom out, drag the nose, and rip the radiator off. And then we'd run it as absolutely hard as we could for another 15, 20 minutes with no radiator, no water. It was fine.
Multiple times too.
Oh yeah. This was, and like this car, Volvo in that era, they used the same parts on everything. So all the local junkyards, each junkyard that we kind of found would have 5 or 6 of cars that would have, it wasn't the same radiator. It was close enough. So we could go get another radiator for $6, throw it back in, and off we go. I think we might have pioneered, maybe someone else has done it, but Volvo bowling, where we would set up, 10 55-gallon drums like bowling pins, and we'd go bowling. It was
your own Top Gear.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun.
Original Top Gear, kind of. Yeah, I remember the stories of that, and I thought you drove it for a while, even without the radiator and that back and forth to work.
So luckily, that particular Volvo had a separate drive belt for the water pump, and then one for the power steering pump, and one for the alternator. And at one point in time, we lost the alternator belt, and it was just kind of a constant. I'll deal with that later. And I drove it for the better part of a week, at least, with no alternator. And then finally, one day on the way home, the headlights started getting dim enough that we had to, go to the parts store. And these are just, super short little V belts that you can get for $5 or whatever at the parts store. So I finally had to go back by the parts store and get a belt and throw it on there so we could, I could get to work the next day. But it was truly indestructible. We everything we did to it, it just kept running. And finally just kind of, we said, you know what, it's time to move on. And I think we sold it for scrap or something, but it was, we probably had it for a year and just did nothing but thrash on it. And it just kept on going.
So if you're looking for a car for your 16-year-old,
1990 Volvo 740.
So we'll go ahead and wrap up here, but Birmingham Road and Race, right?
Yep.
You have a website, or is it just a Facebook page?
Yeah, no, we have a website. We haven't really done a whole lot with the website. We do more stuff on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Birmingham Road and Race. Check us out. If anyone needs any track car, street car, race car, go fast stuff, we'd love to help.
So, well, it was good to kind of catch back up with you. It's been a while since you and I have talked, and I think last time I was actually selling you a whole bunch of cigars in a parking lot.
Sounds about right.
So, but thanks, Mitch. It'll be Derek and I'll be back on the next episode. Got a couple of different topics him and I are tossing around. Sorry to be so scattered with times this week for those of you that do watch the live stream. Go ahead and check out No Driving Gloves at nodrivinggloves.com. Right now we've got 2 rows on our homepage of gift ideas or gift suggestions for you. I brought up the books last night that we have there. We've got the little table. We've got the shop lamps that Derek brought up. There's just a couple of little things, nothing over the top, not like our original Christmas list where Will was putting on $15,000 Miller metal shaping machines. This is stuff you can actually use.
I have one of those on my Christmas list.
So, check that out. If you found any value or you got a little bit of fun out of tonight, go ahead and, send us some, send us a buck on what I want to say, buy us a coffee or Patreon. If not, don't worry about it. We do this kind of for fun. Otherwise, Let me see if I can hit the right buttons here, because obviously we're not in the studio, but we'll talk to you in a week or so. And we're out.